Welcome to the Band Director Bootcamp podcast, the go-to place for busy band directors who want practical to build programs while maintaining balance in their lives. This podcast is brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where we help directors like you find efficiency, sustainability, and impact in your teaching and leadership. And speaking of impact, our platinum sponsor, Kennelly Keys Music, has been serving musicians with a commitment to quality, reliability, and exceptional service. Whether you need top-tier instruments, expert repairs, or trusted advice, they've got you covered. Now, let's dive in and set the tempo for success.
Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. We know you don't have time for long, detailed webinars, so we provide 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to support career longevity and a happier you. And today, I am super excited to introduce Heather Hoefle, a dedicated music educator. She told me how to pronounce it, and I messed it up. Heather's here with her cat also, and she's a dedicated music educator, composer, and a clinician who's got a passion for creating accessible and engaging resources for young musicians. So y'all that are music teachers, this is going to be perfect because we all have kids in our class that need extra help here. She's taught for decades and is now retired, but taught up until 2022, and she understands the challenges that we face in our classrooms, especially when we're working with beginning and intermediate students. And she has created Together in Excellence, which is a new resource that's been specifically designed to support teachers in providing high quality and approachable ensemble music for students. So today we're going to talk about what is this resource, how it can help, and the importance of representation and composition. And we're going to give you some practical advice for all you educators that are trying to balance it all. It's not like you're going to be able to balance it all after this, but we're going to give you some pointers to make it a little bit easier, right? So Heather, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what caused you to decide I need to create a resource. What was going on in your teaching career?
So I was the 5th and 6th grade band director in a middle school, and we would host our own solo and ensemble festival every year, and we would require every student in the program to perform something. And this is not a program where everyone took private lessons. In fact, very few did. And we didn't, we had some administrative support, but this was not a big high-powered program. So we would use the convertible ensembles in festival ensembles, the Bruce Pearson, Ryan Allen books. We would use those a lot for the 7th and 8th grade. They worked great. But they were a little too difficult for our 5th and 6th graders, specifically with rhythmic independence. A lot of times when the first time a student plays something where they are the only one on their part, to also have that be rhythmically independent of the other parts is a huge challenge. And we want them to be successful, and you need something for everyone. So that means you've got to find music that fits them, that is going to make them successful because it's their first year. And if they have a negative experience, that could impact, their future in the program. Mm-hmm. So, excuse me. So, I struggled with this for a few years, and then I was like, well, I'm just going to write this. At that point, I'd already written a couple of pieces. I'd started arranging for band. I'm sort of working backwards here, sorry. But I started arranging for band early on because I needed music, to fit ensembles that weren't perfect, the instrumentation and all of that. And then I got brave one day and thought, well, why not just try to write something? Because I wanted a ballad. I wanted something that wasn't too slow, but was lyrical. And so I sat down and had some wine and cranked it out. And And I thought, well, this isn't that bad. And so I tried it with my band, and my husband is a band director too. And I had him come to the concert, and I said, does this sound homemade or does it sound store bought? And after the concert, he's like, it's store bought. I'm like, yes. All right. So I started sending, I wrote a couple pieces, that and Donut Factory. This is Red Sky Morning and Donut Factory. Sent them out to a few publishers, and I got accepted by Chose Publishing. And so those two were out. And then I met Robert W. Smith, and he was, a fabulous mentor for me and publisher, and I miss him greatly. But anyway, so I'd started working with him. And so I kind of just gotten my big toe sort of wedged in the door of the composition world. I'm, just eking my way in. So I thought, I need music for these kids, and I struggle with this every year at Solon Ensemble, and I see these kids try to play these pieces that just don't quite fit them. Even though they're well written, they're just not quite of the right level. So one summer in my backyard, I got my computer and I just started writing this, and I would update it every year and revise as the kids would play them. And then last year I submitted it for publication, and it got accepted. And since then, there have been a lot of revisions, through editing and all of that. But I'm pleased with the final result. I tried to include music that was accessible by the least experienced students. The first tune is half notes and whole notes and quarter notes all blocked together. It's in an ABC convertible format. And then there are a couple of blues tunes in there. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead and explain the ABC format in case anybody's not familiar.
Yeah, so in every book, there's a part A, a part B, and a part C. And there's a flute book and an oboe book and a clarinet book and so on and so forth. And so a trumpet player can play one part, and a tuba player can play another part, and the flute player can play another part, and you can put them together. You've got to be careful. I mean, you wouldn't want to do 3 tubas. That's going to sound kind of muddy, right? So you have to be mindful of how you assign the parts. But basically, if you have a horn player that wants to play a duet with a clarinet player, you can do that. If you've got some kids that go to the same church that want to perform together, you can do that. If you want to just my last year of teaching, we wanted to have some 8th graders perform in the 6th grade lunchroom, just to recruit kids for band. And so we just handed out parts to Uber Boogie. That's the last one in there. It's a little blues thing. And it didn't matter who showed up. We could get something to work, So
how engaging for kids. No, seriously, because even if you're a beginner and you can play along with those other kids, you start to go, this is really cool. They get that band experience.
Well, yeah. I mean, they want to play with their friends, right? Yeah. Yep. And so it's all about finding music that will fit them. There's a piano book. So the A part can be played as a solo with piano. All of them.
Okay.
Therefore, sometimes the B part, sometimes there's some little crossed voices. There are a lot of optional octaves written in. It was a puzzle to write this, because with such a limited range, as you can imagine, to follow, there were a lot of compromises made, but I feel like it works. I know it worked for me, and it was very useful.
I want to get my hands on these. I know this would be the kind of thing my students would love, because we do it's called Grand Buddies, where we go to a retirement home and play. And the kids pick small chamber groups to play in, and it's hard to find the music for them. I'm super excited. See, I host this podcast so I can get all these cool inside things. And now, this is great. It's personal growth for me today. When we talk about productivity and wellness tips on here, and one of the phrases you had said earlier, not here, but in a thing you had filled out, said, you can have it all, just not all at once. And I think as band directors, we're like, got to do it all well, got to do it all at the same time. But you weren't composing and teaching full-time and raising a family. So talk a little bit about how you've managed to do these things, but do it spread out, and why that's important.
Well, it's hard to see when you're young that there are going to be different phases of your life, and they're going to look different, and you're going to have different freedoms in those stages of your life. So, I mean, at least for me, when I first started out, I didn't have children and I could just, go. Then I met my husband, and okay, who gets, who follows whom, he taught community college. So I ended up following him. So had I not done that, I may have been able to, my dream was always to get that high-powered junior high band job. That was my dream. I was going to, take a band in Midwest, and that was my big dream. But I met this wonderful guy. And
always
so
ruin everything.
I know. And I don't regret any of that, but it's just reality. So I taught, and then I started having kids. And then, of course, that's a challenge, just, getting through all of that. Teaching by itself is a lot, and parenting is a lot, and doing that together is a lot. And I didn't start composing until my kids were older. I mean, you can't, at least I couldn't sit down at a computer and concentrate on something with a kid, mommy, I need, whatever. So it requires a certain amount of solitude and quiet, and that doesn't occur until they don't want to talk to you anymore when they're teenagers.
I was going to say, the teen years are good.
Yeah, that's
they just want money and then they leave. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I never even dreamed I would become a composer. It came out of necessity for music in the classroom. And so a lot of my music is very practical, but I hope it also is engaging and kids like it, and that it makes them feel something. And I've been this is just a little plug for me, but the last couple of years I've been working on higher level literature. I'm kind of working my way up the grade levels, still writing beginning band music, but I'm doing some grade 3, and I just finished a grade 3.5 for an all-state band. So, yeah, I'm digging in. It's fun.
That's great. Have you done commissions, or would you be open to that if somebody listening says, hey, I'd like to do that?
Oh, yeah, I do commissions. In fact, the piece I just wrote is for the Iowa all-state 8th grade band. So they commissioned me to write a piece for them, and that was fun because they can play. Yes. So, yeah.
I commissioned a friend of mine to do that for an honor band I conducted before, and now I'm going to reuse that piece at Washington All-State this year. But I've invited her to guest conduct it, so the kids will get to meet her and everything. So I'm excited.
Perfect.
But that's really cool, because for our students, to be able to interact with composers that are real and alive is such a cool thing. That wasn't a thing when I was a kid. I mean, most of the composers I was playing were dead anyway, so it's not like you can just call Beethoven up. Yo, Ludwig, what's up? But it's been really cool, because a lot of band directors or former band directors are doing the composing now, and it's just it's just cool to have that interaction. I don't know where I was going with that statement. It seemed like
social media allows for that too, a little more. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's really cool that you do the commissions, and that puts a personal touch and the like. And we've had other guests on here that have talked about the importance and the value in doing commissioned pieces for your students in your community. So I think that's totally cool. And I got a couple more questions for you. But before we continue, I just want to take a minute to thank our sponsor, the Empowered Music Educator Academy, for making this podcast possible. At the Empowered Music Educator Academy, it's all about helping busy band directors create successful programs, build strong communities, and feel more balanced in their personal and professional lives.
As band directors, we know that success is all about preparation, whether it's in the classroom, on the podium, or behind the scenes. That's why the Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you master time management, reduce stress, and create sustainable routines that keep both you and your program thriving. And when it comes to ensuring your musicians have access to top quality instruments and services, Kennelly Keys Music is the name to trust. From rentals and repairs to expert advice and outstanding customer service, Kennelly Keys is committed to keeping your program running smoothly. Visit KennellyKeysMusic.com today to explore their offerings and experience the difference of working with a company that truly cares about music education. Now, back to the show.
All right, we are back with Heather Hoefle and finishing up here talking about compositions and why she began to write her curriculum together in excellence. And I'm fascinated by this. I started using some flex band stuff when I started teaching middle school just a couple years ago because I taught high school forever. And even that kind of thing, I was like, this is when they talk about scaffolding, when they talk about things like adjusting for our students and the like, then you guys are doing it for us. You're doing a lot of that work as composers. And I think that, by creating these resources that you've done. So I'm just thinking, before we wrap things up here today, what would you suggest? Let's say a new teacher out there, maybe, who's just like, what can I do to have a nice long career, or get my kids involved, I should say, in like you have done. If they're in a school, and I know teachers who are like that, I want my kids to do solo ensemble, but it's just not a thing here. It's kind of dorky. How could they use like your materials or some other ways to engage kids to do the kinds of things that you've done? Just maybe some practical suggestions.
Find music they like.
That's so say that again.
Just find music they like. Give them a voice as much as you can. I mean, you can't have the kids make every decision in your program, obviously, but when they're choosing a piece to play, even if it's not solo ensemble, even if it's just a play for the class or anything, if they decide what it is, they're going to have a whole lot more ownership. They're going to like it a whole lot more. They're going to be more successful. I used to introduce music I would just kind of play a few melodies and they'd be like, oh, I like that one. They have opinions. They'll
oh, yes, they do.
Oh yeah. No, but they will. And it's always surprised me. It wasn't always the blues tunes that they would choose. Sometimes, you just never know. So what will speak to a child? So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because in our region here in Washington, we have our regional solo and ensemble, and I'm our board member for stuff. And we are revamping this year because exactly what you talked about. Our current rules for middle school and high schoolers, it has to be, classical music type of thing. And I've had so many students who say, well, I want to go play, but I want to do something different. And we've changed the rules. We're going to have an open room where students that want to do either instruments that might not be traditional, or if maybe they've composed their own piece or something like this. And we're going to have an open room, because letting kids do music or learn what they need to learn through literature they love is so much more powerful than saying, sorry, if you're not going to play classical music, you can't go perform here. So I think what you just said is critical. Help them find, or they'll find it.
Well, I mean, they have to have a well-balanced
of course.
diet,
absolutely.
Right? I mean, you can't just, play movie themes or whatever, but
no.
But yeah, absolutely. They need to have some say. I also want to mention that this book that I wrote, Together in Excellence, is correlated with the Tradition of Excellence series. You don't have to use them together, but it correlates with book one. So it doesn't just stand on an island, and it's it's by the same publisher as it's Chose Publishing, and they did the chamber ensembles, the festival ensembles, Excellence in Chamber Music. Those are the books. So it's in the same format as those.
Oh, great resources then.
Yes.
Well, what we're going to do for our listeners is we're going to put some links in our show notes for people to go and be able to quickly find these resources that you've talked about and be able to get them if they're interested in doing that, because especially this time of year, as we've got a lot of opportunities for chamber groups and the like, or even with the full bands, to have something like this available is awesome. I know I'm definitely checking it out in more detail.
Another application for it is if you have a summer camp where you don't know who's coming, that kind of thing. You've got a group. I've tried to allow for differentiation as much as possible within the book. So let's say you've got an advanced clarinet player, maybe put them over the break, give them a higher part, so there are lots of applications beyond just solo and ensemble. If you want sight reading for a more advanced ensemble, if you've got mixed instrumentation, you could even use the pieces as concert pieces.
It sounds like an incredible resource that you've created. Wow.
I hope it's useful. I really, truly do. I hope that it makes band directors' lives easier and helps kids enjoy what they're doing. That's my goal.
On behalf of band directors, thank you.
I want to provide opportunities for success. I heard that in a clinic one. I don't know what it was that said it, but that has stuck with me for many, many years. Provide opportunities for success.
Well, it sounds like Together in Excellence is exactly that. Sounds like a fabulous resource. I really appreciate you coming here today to give us a little more in depth so that those of us that are out there saying, hey, I need something different, not sure what I need, maybe we just found that thing we've been trying to articulate. So thank you for your time and your expertise today. And thank you to all of our listeners who keep showing up every day for your students and for all that you do to contribute to their music education experiences. The work you do matters, and so do you. Join us next time on Band Director Bootcamp for more productivity and wellness tips to make your life a little easier.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Band Director Bootcamp podcast. Remember, success in music education isn't just about what happens on the podium. It's about taking care of yourself and setting up systems that work for you. The Empowered Music Educator Academy is here to help you do just that. So be sure to check out our resources at empowered.Educator.com. And of course, a huge thank you to Kennelly Keys Music, our platinum sponsor, for their unwavering support of music educators like you. Whether you need instruments, accessories, or expert advice, their team is ready to help. Thanks for listening and keep making music happen.